South Africa's public protector said on Wednesday that President Jacob Zuma, quote, benefited unduly from a $23 million state-funded security upgrade to his private home. In a damning report released 6 weeks before elections, South Africa's top anti-corruption watchdog accused Zuma of conduct that was, quote, inconsistent with his office. The watchdog also said he should repay a reasonable part of the cost of the unnecessary renovations, which included a swimming pool, cattle enclosure and amphitheatre. Thuli Madonsela's report painted a picture of government incompetence and flouting of normal tender procedures. Madonsela described the cost overruns as exponential and said ministers had handled the project in an appalling manner. And so from our Johannesburg studios, we're joined by Associate Professor Noor Nieftagodien, Head of History Workshop at the Wits University School of Social Sciences. Professor Noor, thank you for joining us. So what do the findings of this report mean for President Jacob Zuma and the ruling ANC ahead of May elections?
I think it's important to remember that the Nkandla Report has been in the public domain for a number of years now. There's considerable anger in the broader population about the expenditure on the President's private home. So that the report issued by Thuli Madonsela today, the public protector, has not come as a surprise. In a sense, I would suggest that there's a bit of Nkandla fatigue in the broader population. So that the adverse effects on Jacob Zuma and the ANC in general in relation to the outcome of the elections have already been counted in terms of the prospects for the elections. So I would suggest to you that as devastating as the Public Protector's report is in relation to the President and a number of his ministers, and in fact points to systemic problems within the government and state, I suspect that it will not have a devastating impact on the ANC in terms of the elections. A lot of the problems associated with Nkandla has already been counted into the ANC's calculations about the elections. I think that what one is likely to see is that there is already broad dismay at what has happened under President Jacob Zuma's watch. And Nkandla, in a sense, exemplifies a range of problems related to the government: over expenditure, corruption, state incompetence, and as a consequence of that, the lack of service delivery. Thuli Madonsela's report suggests, for example, that people were removed as a result of the expansion of Jacob Zuma's home, that the amount of money that was spent on Nkandla could have been used for service delivery to poor people. Now, that dismay at the consequence of the expenditure by the ANC government has caused enormous discontent within the broader population.
And speaking of discontent, Professor Noor, if I may just jump in, let's talk about the reaction from the opposition, the Democratic Alliance. It did announce that it will initiate moves to have President Zuma impeached. Just how likely is this scenario?
I think it's impossible. I think they will try to recall Parliament, but because the ANC has such a huge majority in Parliament, that attempt by the Democratic Alliance is unlikely to succeed. So from a formal point of view, this has been expected. I think that the Democratic Alliance has been waiting to make this call, but it's unlikely to succeed. Of course, it's a different question entirely about whether ordinary citizens believe that Jacob Zuma should be removed. And I would suggest to you that even though the ANC still maintains huge support and will likely get more than 55% of the vote, although it is an open question as to whether it will get 60%, there is much less support for Jacob Zuma. I think that if we were to have direct elections for president, I think it is an open question as to whether Jacob Zuma would be elected the president. So I think that even though the attempts by the DA to impeach Jacob Zuma by recalling Parliament will not succeed. It's simply impossible because they don't have enough support in Parliament to do that, that there is within the broader public of South Africa much less support for Jacob Zuma than there is for the ANC.
All right, Professor Noor, thanks very much for those insights. Professor Noor Nieftagodien live for us there in Johannesburg.